Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Kevin Lee Social. Thank you for tuning in. What initially began as an 8-part series interviewing entrepreneurs to share and inspire how they've successfully pivoted during COVID-19, I have decided not only to continue this series, but also to expand on the scope to understand and learn about people's craft, philosophy, the challenges they face in the industry, and their favorite failures that have helped shape them to become who they are today. By going deeper and understanding different thought leaders, businesses, and industries, the idea is to help cross-pollinate ideas applicable in your life and inspire action in this new norm we live in. I hope you enjoy the show. Thank you. Before we get on with the show, today's podcast is sponsored by Altitude Tea. Altitude Tea specializes in rare and exotic teas you can't find on supermarket shelves. Teas grown on high altitudes are more nutrient-dense due to the cold nights and misty peaks that slows the growth of the tea plant, leading to a higher concentration of aromatic oils and richer flavors. They are located in Waterloo and they do private tea ceremonies where you can learn how to drink tea mindfully using a traditional gongfu set and have over 20 varieties of tea to choose from. For our listeners, you can use the code BEYOND at checkout for 15% off. Today we have Crystal Jow. She is a Los Angeles-based experiential media designer and movement instructor that specializes in audience-driven immersive installations and meditative experiences that explore motion and media. She's worked with clients such as Oculus VR, ESPN, Deloitte, Warner Brothers, DoorDash, and has created installations at the J. Paul Getty Museum, 20th Century Fox Studios, DGA Theater Complex, and more, as well as having taught workshops internationally. Her art practice provides audiences with the opportunity for self-reflection and the ability to investigate relationships around us and the subconscious. She is currently developing new immersive experiences by cross-pollinating her movement practices, wellness data, and meditation with media and interactive technology. She received a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in Experiential Animation from the California Institute of Arts and a Master of Fine Arts degree in Animation and Digital Arts from the University of Southern California. Everyone, please help me welcome Crystal Jow. Hey, Crystal, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on. I've actually been, is probably not the right word, digitally stalking you in terms of your artwork because you do amazing work, and I've been following your work online. And then when I joined HQ Pro, an online program, and then realized that you were essentially a community moderator or community leader there. And then I thought, oh, wow, this is an awesome opportunity to connect with you further. So thank you for taking the time.
I'm flattered. Thank you so much.
I wanted to start off with your bio. It shares that you are an experiential media designer and movement instructor that specializes in audience-driven immersive installations and meditative experiences that explore motion, with a focus on developing new immersive experiences by cross-pollinating her movement practices, wellness data, and meditation with media and interactive technology. Wow. Okay. I'd like to just break that down into two parts. Firstly, can you share with the audience what an experiential media designer is and what they aim to deliver?
A good question. They have a lot of different terminologies like new media or mixed media artists who really aims to create experiences and memories for the audience. I think that's the straightforward way I could explain it.
Yeah, I've been hearing that term a lot lately. Actually, new media art. A lot of artists are hashtagging new media art, and then it's, oh, okay, what is this term?
Yeah, like mixed media, things of just not being more broad than the traditional painting or just digital arts, but using digital arts, but also using space and thinking of music and all the different elements mixed together. And it is always, it's such a big umbrella. So even I'm staying in Airbnb yesterday, and it's always when people ask, like, what do you do? It's like, take a little bit of like a gap there. Okay, this question, you can do it. Like, and they usually try to throw out like some type of example where they can like grasp onto, like, oh, like this. They're like this thing. No, do you do fashion fields? Like, I can, but not really. And whenever I meet someone who do something similar to what I do, I ask them, like, what do you say your title is? What do you describe it? And then usually, it's like people who've been doing it for years, to people starting out, they're like, code art, installation.
Yes, yes.
Yes, it is still, it's like new, but not new in a way that I think oftentimes we're in the background of things. We're not the actors, we're the ones, when it's done, you're not noticing it as much. So it's when you experience it, you don't think about how it's made. And I guess in a way that means it's successful. Just let us do the figuring that part out.
Yes. It reminds me of this question that you posed in the Facebook private group. And it was something along the lines of, how do you brand yourself, or something like that? And it's like, when you're reading through the answers, everyone has a really different perspective. And some are just like, I'm not too sure. I just say I'm this or I'm that. Or I only go through recommendations or something like that along those lines.
Yeah, yeah. And I had an animation background. And I remember one professor would say that animators are like shy actors. And I guess in a way, designers or even in working as experiential media designer, it feels like I like also still like a shy actor.
I never thought of that. Actually, it does make sense when you bring that up. And so, where did the focus on movement practices, wellness, and meditation come from? How did that come about?
Yeah. I've always been drawn to deeper thinking of consciousness, probably having my grandparents being Buddhists in Taiwan and having the idea of reincarnation and some of that teaching carrying on. Yet I really dived deeper into mindfulness in mental and physical forms in undergrad. I took a class on different cultures' perspectives on death, and a few years later, my grandfather passed away, and that gave a lot of deep questions for me on my spirituality and purpose. And I started meditating in 2016, and I do a daily morning meditation every day since. And also around the same time, I got really into my physical asana yoga practice and did yoga trainings, and it was teaching for about 4 years. And it was really like an outlet for me to have a balance. And working in art and technology, we're often on the computer a lot, staring at a screen. So it's good to have that kind of balance for myself, but also something I can share to others.
Firstly, I'm sorry to hear, and thank you for sharing about your grandfather's story. And I can only imagine what kind of impact that may have had on you at a younger age. I'm really big on meditation myself. I guide breathwork and meditation practices on a weekly basis. It's a very fascinating area for me because I like to go down the neurofeedback side of it and understand the science of it as well. And it's interesting to try to bring the meditation and the spirituality into the art side. I think it's very interesting. And some people have tried to do it before and in different ways. Like one of the artists that I've interviewed before, Bora Identu, he did one where they connected an EEG kind of headband. And then as the person experienced different emotions, or for example, they might consider a gratitude practice. And then because of the bandwidth of different brainwaves, it would then paint a certain generative art as it goes through. And so everyone would essentially have their minds painted out when they experience anger or love and gratitude. And so I think it's quite a beautiful thing, and you can get very deep with it in terms of thinking about how to express something.
Yeah, and also like data visualization in this field, you're trying to give a look or a image to what is the invisible. And that's the in between of artists of trying to communicate that, like even in different fields of artists working like scientists aren't always the best at communicating. You have the artist kind of being the bridge, the translator of trying to express that in a way that can impact people in different light.
Yes, that's the word, data visualization. I see more and more of that now, I guess because of famous artists like Rafik Anadol. He's just blowing it up in terms of data visualization work. But I think it's very fascinating, and I love how you put it, turning the invisible into a visible space. using that. And since we're on the topic of adding spirituality in your work, I like to dive into one of your projects quickly. It was titled Zest. And just for the audience, the blurb for it is Zest is a visual music piece that explores themes of balance and self-healing. Zest is influenced with traditional Tai Chi movements. In the piece, one follows a shadow character trying to harness energy from purple gems. The color purple is often associated with spirituality, wisdom, mystery, and peace. And the music was by Mochi Robinson. If it's possible, can we unpack this project a little so the audience can understand the level of thought, planning, and resources required to create such an immersive performance?
Sure. So Zest was really my first more immersive personal project. It was done, I believe, in 2017. And when I do a personal project, it is really personal. I try to use it as a form of self-therapy where also during the process trying to work up and dissect something that's been in my mind. And I made Zest while I was still in graduate school in University of Southern California. And during the same time, my mom was diagnosed with lung cancer. And she was lucky she caught it early, lucky, because she never smoked a day in her life. So it was something that was a big surprise for everyone. And she's really my rock. And having that and seeing her being very strong about it, we started, but she's also always on the go. And I really wanted to have her to slow down and think about her mental health too. And we started taking private Tai Chi classes together. And that was going through that and also trying to process of understanding what's everything is going on, because everything externally felt like it was good. Like it was a time where I felt very stable in my relationships in school, but then feel like internally we are all dying, we're all aging. And then Zest was something that was kind of manifested in that, applying the physical teaching, but also coping with my mom's illness and what it means in a higher, broader sense.
That was quite deep in terms of layers. As you said, it's very personal. And I love to hear this side of the story because you don't really get that from the overall blurb, right? To understand where this actually came from. And having a family member sick, it's always sad to hear such a thing. And I hope she's okay now. Is she good?
So afterwards, she had surgery and then it was on her right lung, and she got better, and she didn't have to do chemo, but she does a lot of checkups. And actually more recently, I think 2 months ago, it came back on her left lung. She's getting surgery again next month. Next month? Yes, next month. It's still a process, but it's trying to take everything as a growing moment. And she actually was just here. We got to spend a week in Paris together.
That's great. I wish her all the wellness and hopefully a very speedy recovery. So.
Thank you.
So I was watching the video of the Zest performance. It was almost as if, for the audience, I'll put this link in the show notes so you can check it out as well. It's a very cool video. And you see the performer, it kind of moves, and the shadow that comes through. And then there's the Tai Chi movements as well. In terms
That was me, by the way.
That was you.
That's me.
You couldn't really tell, right? It was just better, and it was very cool, mirror.
One was a recording of me, and one was live me performing.
Yeah. It was definitely check it out, guys who are listening to this, because you get this, you spin out a bit because you're like, oh, which one's a recording and which one's real, and then you kind of see movements, and you can tell there's a lot more deeper thought into this. And here's the context for you guys. So thank you for sharing it, Crystal.
No problem. Yeah, I think I was more stressed about the performing part than actual visual part. I was after, and I was I don't know if I'm gonna perform anymore.
You did great. I think I saw another video of you on Instagram that you posted out to the public. I think it was you were doing a yoga session.
Yeah.
I think it may have been during lockdown or something like that, and you were doing this yoga session, and with another you behind you, kind of emulated.
Oh yeah, it was a long lockdown doing workroom tests. Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool as well.
Yeah, that's fun.
We do get I remember some people asking even in our private Facebook group about, I'm thinking of doing an interactive yoga studio piece, and that you've done that, so it looks great. From my research, Crystal, in a previous interview, you've mentioned that I don't box myself in one method of art making. I have the medium and technique evolve around what would be most successful or natural for the story I want to tell. Some things are better as a painting and others as an interactive dance experience. I think art should be a means of discovery. I'm fascinated by creating work that is beautiful yet uncomfortable. And my question to you when I was reading that, Crystal, is I would like to understand more about what you mean by creating work that is uncomfortable. And this is interesting to me because this is not the first time I've come across an artist that has tried to evoke a feeling of discomfort. So I'd like to get your perspective on it.
I love making people feel uncomfortable, but like a good uncomfortable. Like, yeah.
That didn't come out right.
I think, I guess because I like to make myself uncomfortable, like trying to push myself outside of my comfort zone. Example, trying to different mediums, trying doing different things that I don't usually enjoy, and try to get more into like, why do I enjoy it? I mentioned to you before in a previous email how like I never thought of myself as going to be a digital artist. Thought I was going to do like traditional illustration, and had an oil painting background, and even like my essay for going to art school was that digital art, fake art. And then I feel like I had the belief like this is not my medium, but thinking like, do I say this is not my medium? Do I think it's like the computer's gonna take the jobs away, or like it's actually just a tool, and I still have my ideas. It's just using what's the difference of using a paintbrush or a dance or like words to convey, and different mediums are good for different things. And same with, for going back to this idea of uncomfortable, what I mean is also like exploring topics that make people feel uncomfortable, like death, vulnerabilities, things that makes us really human. And I personally don't gravitate towards like political art, but subjects of what makes us feel insecure and sure is scary, but also quite fascinating to me. I always avoid running. Just I'm not a runner, and I just run for. And then more recently, I'm gonna try running outside. I'm gonna like this morning. It's my third outdoor run, and I'm like just trying to make it where I feel like I don't hate it. Just get into the comfortable place and just stay there, like physically and also mentally. Like
facing that uncomfort until it becomes comfortable.
Yeah, and maybe I'll enjoy it, or I can say I gave it a go, and I can honestly say it's not a fear thing. It's just I don't like it.
Understand.
Yeah, but also, yeah. And I think that I said the course of having the different perspectives on death course I took in undergrad, and seeing how different cultures, some are more death accepting and some are more death denying. Like Mexico having celebrating Day of the Dead, they like celebrate it. Whereas like in the United States, if someone dies, it's like you give it to someone, it's as if something gross, it's yucky, and then even you embalm it, you put it in a casket that's like airtight, and as if you still want to preserve it, and you don't, it's like a separation thing, and trying to see why is that make us feel so uneasy, and the deeper part of that.
I think it is a very confronting topic, like death. And I think the piece that you created related to that topic, was it called Hush? Was it? Yeah, that's right. And it reminded me of another artist that I had interviewed previously, Motomichi Nakamura, who's based in New York. And a lot of his work was based on evoking fear and discomfort as well. And it was also something that he brought across, that it's a very natural emotion that people need to face, and that's something that needs to be brought up as well. And I wanted to hear about your perspective on using topics that create discomfort. And
yeah, And I think in different times and periods, there's different kind of subjects are brewing. Like the last 2 years, a lot of for me now is more on time and space, physical location and time. And it is definitely also influence of having COVID where we are in this limbo, but also thinking that maybe we're supposed to be in different places and locations in certain times, and what were the chances of you meeting someone and intersecting in this location this time, and playing with that idea has been like a thesis of mine lately.
Do you believe in destiny?
I I don't know the word destiny, but I guess in certain ways I feel that the universe sometimes do show you things, and it can't be really planned.
That's it. I just wanted to ask. Since we were talking about coincidences and not coincidence, like different point in time, people intersecting essentially.
Yeah, because I love traveling, and then it's also what I love traveling is just like discovering. And sometimes I just walk into a park and just take my breath away, and just like have a moment like, wow, I couldn't have planned this. Like this is just something that just happens, or you meet someone, and you're like, wow, and then that moment goes on, and it just keeps going on your way, and that one moment you can't have it back, but it's also nice and beautiful in that way too.
And just from hearing what you were saying, I think it takes quite a level of awareness as well to be present and to take in and describe such moments. Not often people do pause and look at the beauty of that certain situation and go, wow. It always requires so much stimulus these days for people to go, oh, that's awesome. But to see even a simple situation that you've mentioned, it really does show your level of awareness and being able to be present. Crystal, since you did mention COVID, it perfectly segues into one of my next questions. And, you know, with what's happened over the past 2 years and still going, the COVID pandemic, how are you currently managing your projects, or how did you maneuver around this challenge? Did it impact you?
Oh man, the beginning of COVID was real. I rely on live events, and beginning of COVID, live events wasn't a thing. So it really brought in question of my whole career can exist. Luckily, I do have a background in animation illustration, and even though nowadays I don't really get much joy in doing pre-rendered animation, at least I had that. And after, I would say, a year of the pandemic, like early 2021, work really picked up, and I was lucky that I kind of just flowed, and it's been amazing since then. Yeah, it does worry me sometimes, like it's of knowing that there nothing you the future can't in a way was be planned, but a silver lining of COVID is the culture of working remote and being able to have that, because now most, and usually based in Los Angeles, but most people who I work with aren't in the West Coast, and being able to do projects across the country or in different countries, it's been a real blessing. And I was new personally. I don't work very well in a 9 to 5 office job, and being able to do my own schedule and go travel, but also working has been really amazing, though good and bad, and just working with what I got.
Yes, but that's as you mentioned, that's the silver lining there, and even relatable in terms of my silver lining with COVID was this podcast. You know, during lockdown, there's not much you can do, and you still crave connection. And I just thought, let's give it a go. And 2 years later, still doing it. So
That's amazing.
been,
Yeah, got connected with certain friends I lost contact with during COVID, and having like weekly conversations that got really real and more. That is something that we wouldn't have been able to have, and so wasn't for this circumstances.
and so are you now? You mentioned that you're in Paris. So are you working on projects there, or you? just traveling and
Yeah, I'm traveling and working remote. Yeah, so I was first in Italy. I was doing a art residency in Italy, and then I traveled for 2 weeks after it in Italy. And then I think it was a very expansive trip and also a practice of non-attachments in a way. Like my luggage was lost the first few days, and our residency was in a village, so I had no clothes for 3 days, and like I had to ask another artist to bring me underwear. Like I was like borrowed like villagers' clothes. Like it was like really remote village. There's 0 restaurants. It's not like it's like I went to cook every day, and like only 1 day or 2 days a week we can get fresh produce. Like
wow.
and then once I got to Rome, my passport got stolen.
Oh.
But in going back to the park, of just feeling so grateful, like I was coming out of the U.S. Embassy and walking to another location, and then passing by this park, and then it was so beautiful, and I saw this like nice overlook of the city, and I just started crying. I was like, if my passport wasn't stolen, I would have found this beautiful park. And then there was this performer like playing his guitar, and I was just thought like, oh, I want to give him some change, but I didn't have any change, about 20 euros. I'm an artist, and I'm making my American wage, and he's an artist performing, so I just afterwards hand him the 20 euros, and we're both clasping our hands together. And I was crying, and I was like, thank you. And then I went back to the States, and then I was like, I don't want to be here. I also, a lot of life-changing things were happening, and I just booked another flight back to Europe. And I originally bought a one-way ticket, but I bought my return ticket now. But lived in Portugal, spent 2 weeks in Spain, now 2 weeks in France, and then I'll finish it up in Scandinavia next week.
Wow, that sounds like an amazing adventure journey. I'm so sorry to hear about all the trials and tribulations. But
and also I didn't know that I got a temporary passport, and I didn't know a temporary passport is only good to return home. So I went going back to Europe, went through the airport, went through check-in, was on my gate, and they called me up on the intercom and then handed them my documents. They're like, you can't fly with this temporary passport. This only can let you go back. And I was like, this joy. I was like, no, like, you must let me go on this plane. Like, we're boarding in 10 minutes. You cannot go on. You need to get a new actual passport. But luckily, I was like, you work with me here. We have to figure this out. Like, it's not up to, no, I know, but like legally. And then luckily, I have dual citizenship. I also have a Taiwan passport, and I didn't have it on me, but I was like, can I go on if I have a Taiwan passport? And they're like, yeah. And then, but they just rebooked me for the next day. Right. So I just went home, lost 1 day, and then came back. And yeah, I'm grateful for that. Another adventure story.
Wow. That was a mission. A mission.
It was a mission. I was like, no, you must get me on this place.
The desperation, please.
Yeah, and then the next day I saw him at the person who was working with me at the airport. I'm like, hey, Brandon, who are you? I'm like, the girl with the passport issue of the day. She's like, oh yeah, are you good now? Can you go on? I was being like, wait, I don't know. I'm gonna ask you that. Am I good? I followed what you told me to do.
All is past now, and you've made it.
Yeah. Just more grateful for being here.
Yes. Lots of gratitude practice. To continue, Crystal, anyone that comes across your page can see your work has been featured on many prominent spaces. As an artist, I'm sure it hasn't always been this way. Do you have a favorite failure that has set you up for later success?
I have so many rejections. Before, like ghosting, projects falling out, application rejections, so much. Especially during the beginning of COVID, I think being accepting or reflections and rejections and not having that be too personal is like a muscle. And I have done some with Albers. He's like my mentor. He like have me do like cold emails asking like museums or festivals if like my skills can be useful in pitching projects. And I have ones that got pretty far in conversation and later them suspecting to work for free. And I'm also very lucky and grateful to have like amazing teachers and mentors and letting me know my worth and also not to work for free. and there was, I feel like, I believe they need to have some type of exchange, whether it's not money, then it's like food or time or whatever that's possible. But starting off, it's scary. You don't know, you don't have the experience on your back, and you sometimes just want that credit or you want that piece in your portfolio, which is valid. But the question is often like, is it a collaboration or is it a cooperation? And it took me a long time to feel comfortable for asking to be paid for something reasonable. And it's something I think it's similar with like artists and even like in the yoga industry, because it's something that we enjoy doing. We fear to ask for money for it. And if you have an equal part and it's a passion project and something that you work towards, and it's understandable that it's not having, that's something different. But if you're providing skill with no return, you're also setting a low standard. You're setting a low standard, not for just for yourself, but also for the industry and the people after you. And it doesn't. And I think it's something that needs to be taught more. It's something that I wasn't really taught during school, and something that's often an uncomfortable topic of asking for your worth and your value for your work.
I think that's some really wise words for creatives in general, like not just artists, to know your worth. And I think you're very lucky to have, as you said, your mentors to guide you in that way, because so many people run into that issue, right? Should I just take it, and should I just bite my lip and just do it for free so that I can get that experience or portfolio under my belt and then work on it later? And it's at what point do I start asking for money and not really understanding their worth? And another point that you brought up as well is that you then also set the standard for the rest of the industry as well, which is a very key point, that sometimes they don't realize the impact is actually greater than themselves.
Yeah. And it's even like when it's in the beginning kind of scary, what's your rate or what's the budget? And then you're afraid that you say something and they'll laugh at you or something. But it is, you just have to stand true to yourself. Like, this is what I'm worth. And if you don't take it, you're like, okay, now you're going to walk away.
Yeah. And since we're on that topic, I don't know if you're able to share, but do you have any tips for creatives or artists to understand their worth? And I know it's very different, like obviously your experience, what skill sets you have, what you have on offer. So any general guiding principles, if there's any?
I have like spreadsheets of understand, like breaking up in different parts of how really calculating how long it would take you to do the work. And from there, if you break it up, then how much per hour, how much per day do you think you want to put that number to? And it could be a range. And it's also good to ask other people who are more experienced or us, what is their day rate? What is their hourly rate? And now if you have ways to track, like how long does it take you to do a task, and that kind of be able to have that measured, it'd be better. And so even when you have like someone tells you a project, you can break it up. Oh, this is going to probably take this amount of days for concept, how many edits, then it would take me this long to make it, and then draft, and how many hours how many days, hours. And then when you have that in a spreadsheet and you have that also for yourself, then you can also give the price. And then if they ask how to come with the price, you have that to back it up too. And then when you have that kind of broken down, you feel a little bit more confident about it too, that this is not just a random number I threw out. It's here. I can physically see this is what the time and work it would take to do this.
Yeah, it was a great tip. Thank you, Crystal. As you're an instructor and community developer for the HQ Pro private group, you often pose these thoughtful questions to the community, engaging productive thoughts And so to reverse this role for a moment, I'd like to get your thoughts on AI art and NFTs. What are your thoughts on this, and how do you think this would impact your work or the industry?
Good question. So, with the NFT and AI, you're getting deep.
Yeah.
My perspective on NFT is different from AI right now. I'll start with NFT. I'm personally not into the wagon, but I'm not fully against it. If you ask me, hey, like, will you ever make an NFT? I won't say no, but I won't put all my stress and value onto it. I think it really turns me away is like the intense crypto NFT people I do. That is very present. And I often hear the argument like, how are digital artists supposed to make money? What's the difference from doing gallery art? And in a way that's fair, but most people who I know are really into NFTs sees it as more as a way of like a making money quick scheme. And I don't see it as much of your creating really good artwork, and maybe this will also be an NFT. And I think the intention is not there, and that's what kind of bothers me more. And it feels in a way it can get to where it's a bit like a pyramid scheme, and at certain points it's a lot. And even knowing now, like going to a lot of tech conventions, going South by Southwest or it's all NFT stuff, but you don't really see as much installations, but maybe like monitors showing NFTs. And maybe that's the landscapes of this industry is changing, but I think there's in a way that needs a little bit more balance for that. And for AI, I actually did a recent blog post on the HQ about AI, mostly on using Midjourney, and I did a little user guide on it and dabbled a little bit. And yeah, I put a section on the real concerns about it. And if you don't mind, I'll just read a little bit of what I wrote.
Sure.
On AI. About AI Midjourney. It is great for people trying to find inspiration, wanting copyright content, creating references for client decks, creating texture materials for 3D assets, and much more. And later it said, AI has been there for decades, yet the use of AI is expanding into more diverse pool of industries. Questions of ethics, authorship, copyrights, and ownership of creative content will still need to be explored. Having AI replace jobs is a genuine concern. There are agencies replacing concept art teams with Midjourney. It will be a shift in the landscape of creative industries. Where will the future hold that? We will have to wait and see. And that pretty much sums up how I feel of it. Yeah, it's really, it is a great tool for inspiration, for creating content. Yeah, but it's still so early, so we don't know where it'll branch to, and it's just we just have to wait and hope or see how it'll evolve.
Yeah, I'm with you on both ideas. There's so much hype about NFTs. At the same time, it's not something you can ignore. You still want to understand, okay, what's the technology behind this? What's the base behind this? Where is it heading to? And obviously that's all come crashing down as of recent times. And it was so much of a bubble. And but it's not forever gone. Like, that's something that eventually, possibly, you never know how it would change the industry as a whole. Its underlying technology does make a lot of sense, but how that will roll out with utility, we'll see how we go. And in terms of AI art, I've been playing around with it as well, like Midjourney and DALL-E too, and it's pretty fun. Like,
yeah, you're on DALL-E. You got it.
Yeah, I got invited. Yeah.
Oh, lucky you! Oh, you're fancy.
Yeah, I got invited. I got invited to DALL-E too. And it's not the be all end all. It's but it's just fun for inspiration and how you can play around with it. Like I did a really shitty TikTok video the other day, and it was just, and I'm also in the hospitality scene. It's, I'll look up a list of cocktail ingredients and then I'll see what's trendy and in season. And I picked out a few ingredients and then I fed that into DALL-E and Midjourney, and it produced a couple of images of cocktails for me. Oh, okay. It took a couple of revisions and I was like, oh, that looks pretty damn good as a cocktail. And then use that to then create a real life version of that cocktail, and it was pretty fun. I gotta say, quite enjoyed that
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. I'm also feel like something I'm very excited to try to play with this back and forth of digital back to analog, back to digital. This is thinking, example, like, oh, I want to do some 3D printing stuff, sculptures, but what if actually I do like physical sculpture and LiDAR scan that to digital and like going back and forth on doing textures that's generated with AI and then painting that, it's having this like feedback of things, and then kind of you're doing that with a cocktail. Here are these ingredients, feeding it digitally and feeding it back to the physical, and it's interesting, and like it's in a way it's like a dance we're having with technology.
And as you mentioned before, I think it's great as a tool, right? It's a tool that we use to develop our work in whatever shape or form that may be. But how that will unfold, as you said, we're going to wait and see, because there's a lot of ethics and copyright issues and stuff that needs to be discussed. Who owns that piece then, or if you release that and so on? Is it
like,
yeah,
it's really your art. Like you made it because you came up with 5 words.
And it's based off everyone else's work, kind of thing. But look, I was listening to this nerd rant by, I forgot which channel is it on YouTube, but they do all these tutorials on Houdini and Redshift and all that stuff. And they were discussing it, and they were talking about, like humans, we're also, when you create art, you're also taking inspiration from other people's work. Nothing's really completely original, but you just innovate upon.
Mosh podge on,
there's anyway, such an interesting topic. I just wanted to discuss have a fun chatting with you about it. Crystal, we're reaching towards the tail end of the podcast, and I generally ask a list of questions to all my guests. And let's start with, are you excited about any upcoming projects in later this year or 2023?
To be honest, freelancing and being contracted, I have no clear idea what 2023 will look like. But it's both exciting and terrifying. But I have been doing a lot of commercial projects this year, and it brought a lot of value. But I do hope in 2023 to can balance with some more personal projects. We'll see.
Great. Keep an eye out and look forward to anything that you release. Do you have a favorite book or movie that you'd recommend, whatever medium you prefer?
Books, I don't have a favorite, but I have a few that kind of comes to mind. 4 Agreements by Miguel Ruiz, Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth, and this book called Daily Rituals. And I think Daily Rituals is a great even audiobook for creatives because it covers different artists, philosophers, writers, daily habits, and something about habits and rituals really intrigues me.
I'll definitely have to check that out. Daily Rituals one, and Eckhart Tolle one. I think I've heard that. I think I read that one before. And then the first one, Agreements, did you say?
The 4 Agreements.
The 4 Agreements. Okay, gotcha. I'll check that out. And do you have any morning or evening routines? Actually, I already know that answer. You did say you had a morning meditation practice. And as another meditator, I have to ask you, what kind of meditation do you do?
I do TM, transcendental meditation.
20 minutes?
But 20 minutes. And then usually when I'm not traveling, I keep my bedroom a non-screen zone. So keeping all my phones on sleep, not disturb mode outside of the bedroom, not having midnight swiping and stuff, and use like a traditional alarm clock and water my plants in the morning, do my meditation. Lately here, meditating, then going on a run, or actually go on a run and then meditation. But right now I'm next to the sea, so maybe morning swim and then.
Nice. Are there any new beliefs or behaviors that have had a positive impact in your life in the recent years?
Solo traveling. the last 2 summers I've been spending it mostly in Europe on my own, and it's been very expansive experience, learning about myself, learning about cultures, having myself in uncomfortable experiences, meeting people from all over and working while on the move. And it really has changed my life and gave me a broader perspective and made me also not take life so seriously and be more present.
It's great flexibility that you're able to travel and work and still do everything that you want to do and explore and connect. It seems like a very fun, interesting, adventurous lifestyle.
Yeah, even when I came back to Europe, like I just have a carry-on in my backpack and just like trying to be as nomadic, but just cycling the same 5 dresses like every other day. But yeah, it's like, okay, do I want this? I need to get rid of it.
Yeah, I think it reminds me of this podcast that I was listening to recently, and it's a thing. Some people would just travel absolutely minimal, and then for example, they would just wear what they have and maybe one extra backup. They would go there and they would go to an op shop and then buy, get secondhand clothes if they really needed to, and then they would wash it and then just give it back to the op shop, and so that they just always giving back, so there's no waste and there's no extra material.
Yeah, and I guess like going back to like trying to learn from like seeing what is the lesson of different things. And I first going to Italy and then my luggage getting lost along the way, but also I had equipment and doing a project, so I had to kind of have a bigger luggage, And so like, okay, now I'm not even gonna check my bag. I'm gonna just have a carry-on and just like go for 2 months on this, like just have to wash everything all the time. But Elvers was on the road for 8 years, and he just has a duffel that he makes. He made himself.
Wow, that's next level.
That's next level. I still want to look good. He just wears black.
Yeah, you can see that from the videos.
Yeah, he only wears black. I wear a lot of floral prints, so you know that I'm wearing the same thing.
If you could only send one single line of SMS text to yourself 5 years ago, what would it be?
Be here now. Be present.
That's
yeah.
Yeah, it's a great line. It's a great line. It sounds so simple, but it's sometimes the hardest thing to do.
I think a lot of my youth, I always been thinking the future and been planning the future. And I personally feel like I'm entering this new chapter in my life and reflecting how I'm so grateful to experience and people that along the way. But right now, more than ever, I feel really present, and rather than thinking too much of what's going to come after. And I've been having a moment where I see the times of 3, 5 years ago, and with such sweetness, but also understanding that it is something that I won't have back. And maybe in that time, if I was also a bit more appreciative, or I was a little appreciative, but also being aware that to be present.
I've been quite stressed with work, and I've written in my journal on a daily that being present is something I have to try to pull myself back into every single day, and kind of just take it a day at a time rather than looking too far, because it stresses you out, man.
One of my teachers tell me, and I haven't been as good as it when I'm on the move, but in the morning I try to just do a little bit of gratitude, or also just a reminder, like just for today, I will be kind to every living thing. Just for today, I'll do the best with work. Just today, I will. And just if you just say just for today, then there's a lot less pressure that you're not gonna have to do this forever. And just mentally saying that to yourself, I think it sets you up in a better
state of mind, in a sense.
Yeah, better state of mind.
That's a great pre-frame technique, actually. I'm going to borrow that.
Go for it.
Finally, Crystal, how could people reach out or learn more about you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram. It's Crystal Jow Art altogether. And I'm usually pretty good at DM, or you can email me at just hello@crystaljow.com.
Chris, thank you again so much for your time, your knowledge, and sharing everything. You have such a great, fun energy about you. I had so many laughs, and I really thank you again for sharing your adventures. Really entertaining. Sorry,
Thank you so much.
it's entertaining now in hindsight, but it was very tough at that time.
No, it is entertaining. I love to share. Thanks for having such a fun experience being on a podcast.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. All the links to the show notes will be available at kevinleesocial.com, spelled KEVINLY. Conversely, if you have any interviews that you'd love to recommend, please send it over to kevinleesocial@gmail.com. I'd love to connect. Thank you. Until the next episode.